You're right.
It's 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beam.
Here.
Sebo.
Here.
Osborne. Here.
I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
The next item is approval of the June 1st minutes.
So be it. Second.
That's a roll call vote.
Beam.
Yes.
Sebo.
Yes.
Osborne. Yep.
The next item is swearing in of Ian Mallory.
Okay, so
Chief Dean, yeah.
Ian actually has been part of the department for many years. He left for a period of time to work elsewhere. He was a reserve with us for a while, and he's back now and as a sworn officer, and is going to take a part-time position with us. So, Ian, if you come up, please. Raise your right hand. State of Iowa, County of Blackhawk. I, Ian Dennis Mallory, do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability, discharge all duties of the Office of Police Officer in the Evansdale Police Department, County of Blackhawk, State of Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law.
I do swear.
Chair, please. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next item is a request to approve the contract with McClure for preliminary and construction design engineering. Alex of McClure had sent us the agreement, and we have looked it over, and our attorney has looked it over, and I think you have the modified agreement. So Alex is here tonight, if anybody's got any questions.
Was this an increase from the original one we had? Preliminary design cost?
No, it wasn't. I mean, the
I
first,
couldn't get that off my computer.
yeah, the first initial one they did was just doing the preliminary and, Alex, you
Yeah, I
wanna
can
explain that? Yeah,
I just need the total one.
that was a separate contract. That
Yeah,
was
so
the first one.
so far, we've only been under contract to do the facility plan with you
Yes.
guys. So that contract has been going for 3-ish years, plus or minus. This is kind of the next phase.
So we're gonna break ground tomorrow, right?
Maybe on the design.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get kicked off on the design. It's about a year process to get through the design. We've kind of laid out a tentative schedule as part of the agreement. No guarantees, especially with, some of the regulatory considerations that we have with the city's wastewater plant location. But we're hopeful that we can, get this project designed for you and ready to go out to bid, sometime next summer, with construction to follow thereafter.
you submitted it to the DNR yet, or?
No, so where we're at is we're still working through the final updates to the facility plan with the DNR. We feel pretty confident that they're gonna accept that, but, that's still kind of one last hurdle that we have to get through, and we'll do that concurrently, as we kick off the design phase. A lot of those tasks kind of can happen at the same time.
And we had, originally, when we got the agreement, several questions.
Yep.
And Alex has been very responsive,
you.
to those questions and concerns.
Yep, so we worked through a few issues with the city attorney, and then, a third party looked over some of the scope items too, and satisfied all of these questions, so. But I'm happy to answer any others that you might have tonight, so.
So I'm looking for approval to, sign that agreement.
I'll make that motion on that request to sign that agreement with McClure for the preliminary plan, the construction, design, engineering.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Looks like we got an agreement, Alex.
All right, we'll get to work. Thank you.
Right. So the next item is a request from Tim and Danielle Joyce to forgive a forgivable loan that was part of a rehab program we did about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe it was. And those rehab projects were structured with forgivable loans so that within 5 years, the loan was completely forgiven if the homeowners didn't sell or change title to the property. Sometimes things come up. In this case, the Joyce want to refinance, and the mortgage is in the way of the refinancing. Now, we had agreed a few weeks ago to subordinate our position, the city's position, to a junior position on the mortgage so that they could, the loan company could take the first position. But apparently, that was not quite enough, right, Danielle?
They wouldn't do it.
So they're kind of in a position now where they cannot refinance that loan with our mortgage still in place. And there's still $10,718 outstanding on that mortgage. That money comes through the state economic development authority from the federal government. So it's HUD money to start with. Now it's ours after that, once we were awarded the rehab grant for 6 projects, I think it was. We have the right, the city council has the right to forgive those if they believe it's in the best interest of the homeowners. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
So we basically hold the note right now.
Well, that part of the mortgage we have.
So when does this mature? When is the loan forgiven? What year?
Well, there's a couple more years, I believe, on the mortgage. So it would be like 2 years from sometime this fall.
It's 2022 is actually when it matures, so December of 2022 is when it's done. So we have another little over a year on it.
And is there a reason why you need to refinance now, or?
We're trying to
not?
consolidate some debt and then hopefully do some remodeling on the house on the inside.
Would it be possible for you to get an extra 10, whatever the balance of that is, for the 2 years left on this set agreement? And then when the loan matures, and then pay off Evansdale, and then when the loan matures, you can get money back or something? Is there a workaround to that in that way?
Basically, the agreement was that we could not sell or rent out the house within 5 years, otherwise we would have to pay it back. And we're not selling or renting out the house, we're not planning on going anywhere. We just want, like I said, we want to consolidate some debt and do some work to the house.
And why wouldn't they subordinate
they just
Or
said
why wouldn't they allow it?
they wouldn't do it, because, so what is shown on their end at the mortgage company is that we still have a $26,000 lien against the house. Because when they sent the papers in, even though it says there's only 10, they're not taking that into consideration, they're just looking at that full balance.
Would they take a letter from Evansdale saying that the balance was 10?
They got a letter from Mayor Waters and Cindy Knox, and they wouldn't accept it.
Did they say why they wouldn't accept
It
it?
was the underwriters that wouldn't accept it.
Cindy Knox is our representative at Intercog, and she handled the rehab program. And so Deanne and I both have talked to Cindy quite a bit about this, and I talked to Tim about it. We thought it was kind of unusual that the lender would not be satisfied with us subordinating our position. And the mortgage does spell out fairly clearly that 20% is forgiven over 5 years. So I'm not quite sure, what their issues are, but of course, they're out in California, so it's pretty hard for Danielle and Tim, or even the local lender who's ever originating the mortgage, to deal with them. So the council basically has the right, the decision to not forgive the loan, forgive the loan, or ask for repayment.
My only question, Mayor, would be, does this set a precedence if we do more CDBG money in the future, and people know that if they come to the council, if it would go that way, that they can get that forgiven and not live up to that 5-year agreement from the date of the project was taken on? And there's people out there that know everything, so would we be putting ourselves open for anything if that would come up again and have that kind of money? I just don't want to open any worms where, well, they did it in 2021, so we want to get out of ours for whatever reason, so we'll go talk to the council and see what they say. That's my concern on the deal. I mean, I understand what's being said here tonight. I don't know the situation, but I struggle with just forgiving it and letting it go totally. But I guess if I'm hearing there is no option, I mean, I would think between somebody there'd be an option that something could be done on this to be appeasable to both sides instead of just one side. And I understand what they're saying, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Well, and I was thinking in the same terms as Christie, is possibly doing a note, just a personal note for the remaining balance of $10,718. That would take it off the mortgage. And we went ahead and relieving that as paid, but then bill them for the $10,718 over the period of a year and a half.
And just let it work itself out
Correct.
like it would in the mortgage.
Yeah.
So I've been involved in the rehab program for about 40 years. And Steve, as far as setting a precedent, generally it's a case by case. It always has to be, but you're right, it could be the beginning of a real issue. The idea of a separate note, we would have to explore that. I'm not sure what weight it would actually carry.
We can actually help them, I mean, basically what they need is they need a piece of paper that says it's clear,
And I have not seen it ever done that way, and it's not very common for city councils to forgive the mortgages. It just doesn't come up very often, because it seems like 5 years goes by pretty quickly for most people. In fact, some programs are 7 years, but we're just 5. What we could do, I think that's sort
Have
of,
we seen the letters from the underwriters so we know what's going on?
it's worth it's worth checking into. We could ask Cindy at Intercog about that. I'm not sure the legality of it, but it is worth pursuing. Do you understand what he's suggesting?
Basically, you want us to pay you guys $10,000.
No, it'd be a promissory note to pay us. Because it's a forgivable loan anyway.
Mhm.
So it's a promissory note it covers the city for 1.5 years,
Okay.
saying that you will not sell or rent that house out.
So basically, we're just signing a piece of paper saying,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
and it would be notarized, and it'd be a legal document
Okay.
stating, and that would fulfill your portion of the project.
Okay.
Because it was never intended to repay back.
In other words, we're accelerating the process,
Yeah,
Mhm. I get it.
so.
Yep.
Instead of just downright forgiving it. Now, if you decided to get rid of the property or to rent it within that period of time, then you're on the hook.
And we don't.
on a depreciating scale, just like
Yeah, I
it is
understand
now.
what you're saying, yeah.
But it would not be secured by a mortgage.
Correct.
So it would be
It's unsecured.
just a note, just a personal note. But we can check with Cindy to see, I've not heard of that, but I think that could be
Possible.
a good option. So I think Danielle, that's,
Because I do know Cindy's the one that sent us to you guys, because we had talked to Cindy ourselves too. Because when this all had happened, the contract, back when, I don't know if you guys, some of you guys remember, we came to the council meeting, because the worker who was working on the house didn't actually finish the project. We ended up putting out money in our own pocket to finish the project, and Mayor Foss at the time basically told us at that meeting, if he didn't come back to finish the work, the contract was no longer, because we ended up having to finish the work on it. Because he had already been paid out or whatever. But I mean, I understand what you guys are saying. I don't have a problem with that. My husband won't have a problem with that. But we did talk to Cindy, and she's the one that said we had to come talk to you guys about getting it forgiven. So,
Danielle, I would
Yeah.
encourage you to go back to that underwriter. This is the stuff that I deal with on a daily basis. I would encourage you to challenge them. They need to give you a reason as to why they aren't going to let you subordinate that. And they need to give it a good enough reason.
they said because what they're seeing on their side is the $26,000.
But
And
they,
so what we're asking for to refinance, it was too much.
yeah, and I understand that, but if there's a letter from the mayor saying that, your balance is at 10 and it will be forgiven, they can override that. They should be able to override it, and I would challenge them on that, just because I feel like you should be able to,
We just keep getting told the same thing.
yeah.
So,
And sometimes you do end up like that, but I would definitely challenge it, because you may get a little bit further, and then you won't have to, go through these hoops where you have to get another promissory note and sign it. That's just another option that you could try too.
well, so we could leave it that we will check with Cindy to see about the promissory note. And you should follow back up with your lender to see how we can make this work. Are you suggesting, Christie, that we would just subordinate our mortgage and clarify our position on that mortgage? Because we were willing to take a second or third position if need be. So maybe if we clarified that as of this point in time, there would be $10,718 due if you sold it, if you transferred the property. Otherwise, it's completely forgiven after December 22.
2022.
Yeah.
I had a question for you, Mayor. She made a comment about that when the contract was made and the work was being done, the original person did not finish the job. Does that make an issue with CDBG?
There was a little contention there. Just full disclosure, I was the inspector on that job. And we had a few issues. So there might have been some things that weren't finished up correctly. But overall, that job was completed. I signed off on it.
I was just wondering through the grant program if, I mean, we're past that now, but if that went on, was that a stipulation if the original person that got the contract to do the work didn't do it or had a problem? I mean, how would the money be allocated to give out if we got a problem?
There's a lot more to it, I believe, than what we can go into at this
Yes.
point. If we wanna open that can of worms, we can, but I don't think,
We're not
we
gonna go
probably
there.
wanna go down that road. So, should we just leave it at that,
Yeah.
or do we need a motion to that effect?
No,
No.
discussion.
We'll try to revisit this. You can check with your lender, and we can check with Cindy, and, we should be able to work something out.
Thank you.
So the next item is, approval of the resolution calendar. And I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution calendar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and you made everyone aware of that.
Yes.
So I need a roll call vote on that.
King,
Yes.
Sebo,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Motion carried. So the next item is approval or appointment of a garbage contractor. And I just wanted to clarify one thing before we get too far along here. Based on bids that were received, the original bids that we did, what we basically called for was that the carrier would take over the city carts and supply any other garbage carts that were needed, provide recycling carts for everybody, and provide 4 cardboard dumpsters. And those were 64-gallon containers. So the rates that we were given amounted to, Blackhawk was $12.12 per year for a 3-year contract. Republic was $14.03. And Wright Environmental had different rates for the 3 years, but I averaged them. And that was $12.15.
I have a question about I know that we can have, there's a grant to give that you can get the carts taken care of, right? Is that my understanding? For
Yeah,
recycling?
but you know, my thought was, I don't think we wanna get into that. If we're gonna contract with somebody,
Yeah,
that they're on their own for the carts. They own the carts, and we're out of the cart business.
Right, how do we reimburse them for the carts that were replaced?
Well,
Do we not?
It's their deal, not ours. We won't reimburse anybody for that.
We don't.
Actually, it was the other way around for quite a while. When there were damaged carts, the contractor would have to pay us for them because we were in the cart business. But that's, we're looking to get out of that business completely. So it'll be the vendor, the contractor that will be responsible for all carts.
The question I have, that I've struggled with is city carts for trash, recycling carts for recycling, and the 4 dumpsters down at the, recycling thing down here. Does that mean that everybody gets a recycling cart as well as having a garbage cart? Because I talked to a couple of them and it seemed a little gray there if they're gonna, they said as needed, but not enough to say, yeah, we're gonna carte blanche, go through and put recycle carts with everybody. Because let's just say, for instance, one company doesn't get the bid. They're gonna probably pick up their carts, am I right or am I wrong?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So those carts, whether we wouldn't pick them up, say we went with vendor A and vendor B, vendor B's not gonna continue to pick up vendor A's if they're sitting out the road, am I right or wrong?
Yeah, they will.
Yeah,
They'll pick them both up.
Yeah,
Yes,
they would say,
everybody gets 2 cards.
Yeah, recycling and garbage.
Yes.
I understand that, but I'm saying, what if whoever got the contract, there's a foreign cart there also that's not with what you supplied? Are you gonna pick up that cart if some people in town are gonna have that out there full of stuff? It's gonna happen.
well, Steve, it would be on them. If they don't feel comfortable using that cart because it has somebody else's name on it, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they could replace it. It would be on them to do that if they're not comfortable picking up Company A's cart.
I just wouldn't want any confusion. So we are saying that whoever will go forward with recycling carts everywhere. Okay.
And that was in that original bid that was sent out. It was, as I said last meeting, some of the contractors didn't, I don't know, interpret it that way or didn't exactly bid that way, but that's what we required. So we broke it down essentially to be, take over the city carts, provide recycling for everybody, carts, and 4 cardboard dumpsters at the street department site.
And one that I talked to again today talked about the recycling bin would stay down at the garage. They would use it and let that be a facility to the residents. And if it got to be a point, they would bring pictures in to show us if we're having issues of supposedly contamination or not being done right. And if it was consecutively behavior, then that cart would be yanked. That's what I was under the impression. Another thing I wanted to clarify,
The dumpster, you mean?
the recycling down
Yeah,
we're only keeping the cardboard because the other has been so contaminated.
there. But I had one of the companies say that they would still provide that down there under their contract price.
Oh.
That's why I'm asking. So then my last question is, I heard at a meeting prior to this that we have such an issue down there. People put stuff all over everywhere. And I'm just saying the last 3 weeks, I've been home on Monday morning and I went down there and I haven't seen stuff all over, number one. And number two, I'm sure we have a camera on the building that we could spot check that. If we think we got a tremendous problem, let's look at the camera and see who an offender is. And I think one time if they're notified by somebody of importance, that would stop rather than us just saying trash all over, things all over. It's not being picked up right.
yeah, I'm not sure that it happens every time, but I've been down there on a Sunday afternoon for cardboard, and absolutely the dumpsters are completely filled.
Filled, but not all over the area.
Well,
Outside.
no,
Okay.
but they were completely filled to the point where I had to just take my stuff back home.
And why would they still be full? Don't we have a regular pickup that they should be picked up and not have that occur all the time?
It happens over the weekend.
Or maybe holidays like Christmas. I bet.
But what we're
I've
hoping,
tried to pick up cardboard numerous times and I haven't caught them empty yet.
what we were hoping to do was eliminate everything but the cardboard there, because everybody would have a recycling cart. So it did a couple of things, really. I mean, it stopped a lot of the abuse. And it doesn't happen every week, but so it would stop the abuse, but it would encourage recycling.
Having them in your home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having a cart there.
I agree with that.
And it would be the same schedule that we have now as far as every other week for recycling, with garbage every week. And that we thought, before we got into any discussions about the larger carts, which we have talked about, that we would see who got the contract. And then if we wanted to pursue the larger carts, we could. because we had a couple different ways of doing that. One of the contractors said they wouldn't charge any more for a larger cart to dump it. So we had talked about if we then would just charge, like we did for the recycling, just charge for the larger cart or an extra one. So, but those are discussions that we felt like, let's get a contractor to work with, and then we could fine tune that. But for now, it would go pretty much the way it is now.
I have a question, Dan, maybe you can clarify for me. On your monthly bill now, you pay for a recycling cart at the curb and a trash cart at the curb on your bill, or at least what I've seen on the new proposal from one of them, right? That's what I want.
We pay, like, if we have 1,750 pickups in the month, 1,750,
Okay,
we pay that for garbage and we pay that for recycle. Recycle is just a little amount, like $2 and under. Okay, but it's for the masses. So technically, we're already paying for recycling being picked
that
up.
was gonna be my question. So as a resident, I've been paying for recycling at the curb and not getting
If you
I
don't
look
have
at
a
it this
cart.
way, I've never told anyone that we charge them for recycling. I consider it a garbage cost. It's a waste pickup.
I just wanna know
Yeah,
if on your bill you are being charged for recycling and trash cart at this time. And we are.
yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Is that too much of a accounting nightmare to say you had 500 homes that don't have recycling carts? I know a lot of people don't, so why they should at this time be paying that recycling fee?
But they're not. They're paying $39 a quarter.
Yeah, I know that it's a flat rate, everybody.
Yeah,
If they're not getting the service or have the cart, why should they pay for it?
I just call it garbage. It's just, it's a garbage expense. That's what we're charging for our garbage expense, is $39 a quarter, whether they have recycle or not. If they wanna buy, we charge them for a recycle cart. So,
But we won't on this new deal, because all of them they're gonna supply them free. So we're not gonna charge any resident for.
that's right.
And if a homeowner chose not to recycle, they wouldn't have to, but
No, there's
the
something-
cart is there for them to use.
I guess my only question that I have on that is I'm kind of surprised if that's what's been going normal practice and you're saying we consider it all garbage, then why haven't we put carts, recycling carts out to everybody if that's considered normal garbage and everybody's paying the same fee, then why doesn't everybody have the 2 carts instead of 1?
We just never did for recycle. We never demanded it. We never, it's costly for us, that's why. It's
But they're
very
paying for
costly.
it, But everybody's paying for it though.
I think that everybody
That's a
had to pay
technicality.
for
Is that a
the cart,
technicality?
though. I think everybody had to pay for the cart, like I had to pay for the cart, but now, like if those who chose not to pay for it, they didn't, so they were stuck with not recycling essentially maybe? Is that
I'm
kind
just
of?
trying to clarify the error, all I'm saying.
We don't charge them any different than $39, whether they have recycling or they don't. If they do have recycling, they have to pay for the cart. That's always been. Ever
But not
since.
going forward. What Dick the mayor just
Do you
said.
want them to?
That's right, no,
Yeah.
not going forward after July first.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
After July first, the contractor provides a recycling cart for every house.
That's what I was trying to get
Mark?
Dick, I just got a question on what he's asking. So I got carts that are identical to them, but it ain't green. If I put a recycle logo on it, why couldn't I set that out to the curb and have them pick it up? Why should I have to pay $45 for a cart if I'm already paying for recycling? If I set a cart out there that's got a recycle logo on it, why shouldn't they have been picking it up?
After July first, it won't matter.
Yeah, but this whole time, basically, a lot of people in town, because they didn't wanna pay that
Okay, well, we
45
can't live
bucks.
in the past,
Well.
going forward.
I think somebody should have told everybody in town that's been going on this whole time.
Okay. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I mean, there's people that probably put one bag of garbage in their cart currently, and there's people that probably fill their cart all the way up.
Plus
And it's plus some, and that's the same rate, so.
Yeah.
I get what Councilman Siegel's saying, but also at the same time, there's people who utilize certain city services more than others, and everybody pays the same amount, so.
Yeah.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, Dan.
See, they put my little garbage cart out.
yeah, I think we all are, you know.
I might put mine out once a month in
Yeah,
the winter.
I
Not now, because
recycle,
it's hot, but
You just bring it down here, that doesn't matter. You bring everything here then?
no, I have a recycle cart.
yeah,
We have
I do
recycle
too.
carts.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. But for larger cardboard boxes, that's a little too much.
Yeah.
Because I tend to have a lot of them, it seems like, so it's simpler to just take them there, and I think that's how it works out for a lot of people. But, you know, milk cartons and newspapers and just the average recycling stuff, it's very convenient.
Well, maybe we can get it out to the citizens going forward that we're gonna supply them a recycling cart at every home. Maybe it might eliminate some of the issue down there and make it easier for citizens not to be so, trashy.
In other words, don't eliminate it right away.
Right.
Leave it down there and kind of, let's
See what the feel is when everybody has a cart too. Yeah, I think that'd be a good proactive thing.
Otherwise, it ends up in the cardboard.
True. Yeah. It has.
So, it's one of those situations where a decision's gotta be made because the contract is up with our current contractor, excuse me, July first. So unless the council wants to take responsibility for either picking up the garbage or taking blame for not having a contractor pick it up, I think it's decision time.
I'll make a motion that we go with Wright Environmental for the trash pickup for the city of Evansdale.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Hey,
Aye.
should there be questions?
No, sorry, I was just gonna go with, I was thinking of the regular one. No, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mike, I don't want you to throw me out again.
Okay, so, motion passes. Mark,
It's a little late, Dick, after you do a motion in a second, there should be discussion.
it was time for us to vote, we've spent enough time on this. Now, if you have a comment, I'll let you make it.
Comment is, I don't know why you wanna fix something that ain't broken. The contractor we have right now has been, I feel, been doing a tremendous job. I've never had a problem not picking up garbage. They've been there every time. And to switch, why switch when something ain't broken?
Yeah,
My name's Jim Watts. I'm the president and owner of Black Hawk Waste.
mhm,
And we've been hauling your waste for the last 32 years. And the first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank you for our company, from our people and from our company for the opportunity you've afforded us. Because you are Black Hawk's biggest customer. And it'll be devastating to Black Hawk Waste to lose it. Just as it would be exciting for these new guys in the business to get it. But I'm kind of with that gentleman back there. If you have something that fixes it, you got a lot of things in town that need to be fixed. And if garbage is one of them, why fix it? And I would also like to say that from what you just read, we are the low qualified bidder. If we weren't qualified, we wouldn't be holding this for 32 years. I appreciate this gentleman's relationship with the owner of Wright, and I know that he's in favor of Wright. I respect that. I respect this gentleman. You know, he's from not one of the big public companies out of Scottsdale, Arizona. They're traded on the New York Stock Exchange, $15 million a year. I was born in Iowa. My kids went to school in Iowa. I took 3 of them through the University of Iowa, you know. And we're local people, and this is a big thing to us. If you got $15 billion a year in revenue, this account is not that big of an account for you. But to us, it's huge. And I just like to have that, into consideration here tonight. Because we
Well,
are the low
I
qualified,
can kind of explain my take
we're the low
on that.
qualified bidder. And that's what you take bids for. We are the low, and we are
I
qualified. We
did
can haul for
Do
32
my
years.
homework, I called a city that had used Blackhawk previously, and now they are using Wright Environmental, and they said, the question given to them was, basically, if you had to do it over again, would you? They spoke very highly of Blackhawk, but they said, yes, they would, that they were very happy with Wright, and
I'm not here to not
that's
right.
my decision.
I'm not here to not right. We took bids and
No, thank you.
we're the low qualified bidder. I'm just here to be treated fairly and right. If we're the low qualified bidder, then I think that we should get the contract.
Well, first off, I don't disagree with you, Mark, on Blackhawk. They have served us for a long time, and I think they're a good company. But we have discussed this, how many minutes? And it's one of those things, the contract's up in July, that we needed to move forward. So, if the process seems unfair to some contractors, so be it, it's the council's determination, and we have to live with that. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick statement. I'm the owner of Wright Environmental, and I have no relationship to any person on this council. I don't think I've ever met any single one of you in person before. So whatever statement was made, I just want to throw that out for any citizen here that I have zero relation. I've never met a single person on this council. So I just want to make sure that's very, very clear.
What's the purpose of the bid if you don't take the low
I like to
qualified
say
bid?
something. We talked about promoting recycling, putting carts out and everything, okay? Blackhawk's the only one that owns the recycling facility in Waterloo. That's basically a little, maybe 2 miles from here, okay? So your recycling is processed. That's how we know that it's contaminated at the central site. Republic has a recycling facility in Cedar Falls. Does Wright have a recycling facility? You're talking about how you want to promote recycling. That's just a question I got. And the city that you might have talked to was the city of Janesville. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to see the mayor and somebody else there. So I'm just saying, where is your recycling gonna go? Is that gonna be built into the contract?
Well,
They're new in the business,
we have
not recycling.
a proposal from Wright Environmental, and they know the terms. So I'm assuming that they're gonna honor that contract.
On that same day. It was brought up how many years ago, I guess. I'm an old fart now, but I originally run for council because of garbage. When the city council basically started a business, Dietrich was on the council at that time, and he started a family business to start him in the garbage business. And he was gonna live off the city of Evansdale. That was his only thing. And he wasn't low bidder, but they give it to him anyway. And he was $1 or something higher. And that's how they started. Low bidder. I disagree with the way you did the vote. No discussion, nothing. You put this off for 3 weeks until 2 other people ain't here. So you get a majority vote or however you did it. But no discussion from the public on it, I think is completely wrong.
Well, discussion, and we need to move on here, but discussion from the public
means a
I
lot.
believe there's been plenty of time for that. As I said, we first proposed this, how many meetings?
This is been one of the ones.
It's kind of like the sewer plant thing. It's not that that information has not been out there and been discussed. Now, you have not been involved in it. Why didn't you come early on and speak?
Because I was talking to a council member and all of a sudden, today I heard he switched his vote. He was going the other way the whole time. And all of a sudden today, he switches going the other way. And that's why I feel that, I don't know what's up with it, but you have somebody that's low bid, they employ local people. They live in, I mean, they're right over here. If you want to talk to them, they're right, what, mile away within.
30-year history.
Mark is right, environmental, aren't they local?
Yeah,
his-
we're local. I
and his-
started right environmental in college. Our facility's at 110 Dunham Place.
Right, I want to clarify that when you're gonna make these accusations.
Yeah,
They're local.
But, okay.
our residents
They
or
might be
employees live here
local.
too.
I don't want to get in an argument here about it, local and this and that. But the history that this outfit has, worked with the city for so many things, even when the two girls went missing. I mean, they went through every garbage looking for everything, trying to find a clue. Blackhawk worked with us. And I think to throw them under, I mean, as I said, Evansdale's their biggest, I mean, they're already there. They have the equipment and everything else, they're set up. First time that this new company comes in and my trash ain't picked up, I might come up here, are you gonna throw them out, go back to Blackhawk and ask them to come back and do business with you? I mean,
It's a 3
30 years, I can't ever remember my garbage not being picked up the day it was supposed to be picked up.
Now, I don't disagree with you, Mark, but
I don't know,
the council has made a decision.
yeah, but the way you did it without any input from anybody is, I think, completely wrong, and I think there's other things going involved that were under the table with this whole thing.
Oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna stop right
All
there. The decision's been made, so we'll move on to number 12, the public hearing for the budget amendment. I need a motion to
Thank you, guys.
open the public hearing.
Good luck.
Make a motion. to
Don't know any of you,
for the
but
budget.
good luck. Good luck to you guys.
Appreciate it.
Look
Do a
forward to
good
working
job.
with you.
Okay, I heard a motion, did I hear a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to open the public hearing.
Proof of publication is on file, no public comments received.
Need a motion to close the public hearing?
If there's no input from the citizens, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Now I need a motion to approve resolution 6524.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution 6524 and the budget amendment. Second.
That's a roll call vote. Beam,
Yes.
Siebel,
Yes.
Osborne,
Motion carried. The next item is a sign, Steve, you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that Deanna and I have talked quite a bit about. And you got examples, I believe, of official signs.
In the back.
These are just, drafts as far as we're concerned. It's not anything that we're satisfied with at this point. And what we've been talking about is actually having two signs. And they would be essentially sort of back to back. And one would be official sign with the lots listed. But the other one would be, and we don't have an example of it, an Evansdale sign. that would say, welcome to Evansdale, or Eagles Landing, something like that. And now Fisher is gonna pay for their sign. We would probably have to pay for ours. And the rationale, in my opinion, for doing two signs is that we may not use Fisher's all the time.
Right.
So that we'd still have an Eagles Landing, welcome to Evansdale sign up there. And we're not really, at this point, come back for approval on it. We don't really have any firm ideas, but as I said, my thought was to just put them back to back, somewhere out in the field where you can see them from the highway.
What size? What size?
Well,
maybe?
4x8.
4x8.
So they're pretty big signs, but, you know, they're gonna have to be to see them at 70 miles an hour.
Right.
Or 65, I guess, right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah. So, that was just, to bring you up to speed on that. Like I said, we'll come back for any expenditures.
I had a question on that.
Go ahead.
Mark, go ahead, you got the floor.
You're talking a 4x8. You realize a 4x8, what, how much?
I think they're actually gonna be 8x8.
Even 8x8 coming down, you put the word Evansdale out there on 8x8, 8-inch letters, probably. You're never gonna read it. Never gonna read it. You know what, you know the size of the billboards that are on the highway?
What are they, Mark?
14 by 48.
Well, I don't think we're quite ready to go there, but,
Well, you ain't gonna see a 4x8.
but I mean, that is
Put
a,
up a postage stamp.
yeah, no, that is a good point, and we're just starting to get into it. So, as I said,
Just for your information.
we're not prepared to pull the trigger on anything.
Isn't there a sign right now, official sign out there right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought I seen, and I tried to buy it.
He actually has a couple of them out there.
So, I mean, I'm not going 60, or I'm not going super fast, but I can see it. I mean, I guess I also know what's going on too, but
Well, he's got one on Evansdale Drive and then one on Gilbertville Road.
I've seen a lot of people use the banner. Which is a cheap option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're open to,
It's usually a pretty long one to ban on.
pretty inexpensive, but, I think we're open to lots of ideas. One of the things we have been talking about is how we get officials to take a real interest in our development. I guess I want to get from him that we have something really special out there. And so, I think we're gonna ask him to come back in July and give us another update on this. What he's been doing, what his contacts have been, so that we see some progress.
Have we ever thought, I had talked to Troy before he was gone, about a developer like Dahlstrom. I know I've heard bad, indifferent, good. He's done a lot of stuff in Waterloo to show interest and develop stuff. Maybe you could make a call out if he's not interested, that's fine, but they seem to be doing a lot of stuff in Waterloo, and I know it's bigger money, but that's a potential of a gold mine out there too. I don't know why he didn't have somebody in mind that he knew a developer that would chase with that, but
Well, somebody who'd be, I think, a typical developer, and Dahlstrom does have his hands full. He takes on some huge projects, and he does eventually finish them. But it takes him a while. But I think an example of a developer we would work with would be somebody like Jeff Stickford, who developed this building next door, and he's doing a Family Dollar on River Forest Road. So he basically, I don't know if he works with these companies or if he builds these buildings speculative. But that would be the sort of developer we're looking at. Or Jason Huff, he's the one who potentially made the offer to us for the strip center that we've kind of put on hold, so that's still out there.
So he's familiar with the property and obviously willing to put his money into it.
Yeah. And that, I think, is the type of developer we would probably end up working with. And honestly, if I had a list of people I could call, I probably would. But bottom line is, Chris Fisher's.
True.
And so we're going to encourage him. And I think Deanne and I have both talked about what can we do to help him. I know, Charles, you mentioned
We've been trying to
emails and cold
packets,
calling
send
and,
the packets together.
we're not above doing that, that's for sure. But we would certainly hope that our realtor would.
I think it means a lot more for the city to welcome people, in instead of a realtor or somebody that's financially motivated in that situation. So, I just think if, Heart Hotels, I've spoken with them, they're very interested after the economy comes. A lot of people are sitting there because of this economy. So, as we open up, it will get better.
Well, as we get a little farther into the project, and they get the street in and the infrastructure, it'll really start to have something tangible there that people can look at and visualize. Now, the developers, you'd like to think that they could do that, but I don't know. So I'm not concerned at all. I think officials is representing us well. He had no hesitation, I don't believe, in saying that, sure, we'll do something. So we're gonna work with them, let's say, to kind of move it forward.
And we have an update from Schmidt. There hasn't been much action out there in the last couple of weeks as far as his part of the job that he's doing.
Yeah, we haven't, but from what I have seen, they're just waiting to schedule getting the pipeline. That's the next step, they haven't been out there, they have all the water and sewer pipes up there. And we have not heard from Mid-America yet, but that would be, I believe he said, done after the street was done anyway. So really the next step is, and they brought some equipment out. And they have some culverts, so I expect to see them trenching in sewer and water lines any day.
Any more update on Mid-America? Or are we waiting?
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at on the signs and the development in general. So number 14 is a request from our esteemed Public Works Director to replace the tires on the John Deere loader for $1,575.
I'll make a motion to replace the John Deere tractor tires in the amount of $1,575.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public discussion.
Just wanted to make sure you guys got this month's report in the council packets. Okay. Deanna, I know you had a few questions in regards to the maintenance,
We got it resolved,
so you got it resolved.
it's
Okay.
resolved.
Yeah, basically, could you walk through this first one with us so we know what to
Yes.
expect on the.
Yeah, so basically, you guys will be receiving this once a month at the second council meeting. Up above, you'll see that, those are the highlights, that transpired through that course. This is the month of May, obviously. Sometimes Ryan will include, or talk about, depends on what you guys want, but example highlights, just most recently, EP reprogrammed our Buddhist lift station, and that's some ongoing issues with the controls there. He's been cleaning, the clarifiers and all the tanks out there. We've also finished up, the computer-based work order program, so that's up and running. You'll see all the work orders on next month's, council report on the equipment that he's maintaining. Just found out this afternoon that EP, just received a roof from Michigan lift station pump. Still waiting on, East End. It's taking time to get parts. It's just cramming it in. It's taking time to get these, so a little bit longer than normal. On the second page, you've got your BOD effluent and your BO percent removal. BOD stands for the biochemical oxygen demand. It's basically the way, it's the way the industry measures the strength of waste. So as you can see, the way Evansdale's plant is removing the BOD efficiently. Take a look, 2 pages at this Excel sheet. This goes into further detail about the BOD TSS's, total suspended solids. It's doing a good job with that. The only area of concern is phosphorus removal, which I think you guys are already well aware of. That situation based off of prior discussions at earlier meetings, and I'm sure and I hope that McClure is aware of that. So I mean, you can see that there is that phosphorus, but I do wanna make sure that there is no limit currently in Evansdale's discharge permit. The DNR is requiring you guys to test it, but there is no limit. So I guess just something for McClure to be aware of, if indeed the DNR does someday say that it needs to be addressed. More or less making space while they're in the design phase, knowing that it might be something that might have to get treated. And that would be additional tanks on the front side, they call them anoxic tanks with no aeration. And more or less when you look at, when they are designing it, are they leaving room for that in the future if need be? They're not blocking themselves in with other facilities or structures, so. That's the phosphorus removal, but other than that, everything else, the ammonia, everything looks good. Going back to this, so Ryan is in the process of updating all of 2020 to give you guys an idea of like everything else. So you'll see where we're at this year, and then you'll also see on any graph or chart where we were last year for everything. Like here, this chart is average daily wastewater pumped in gallons. So at the next report, you will also see 2020's numbers. Moving on to maintenance budget, Deanne's had a few questions on that, and it's completely normal to be asking those questions. So we allocated $10,500 to the maintenance budget. That number was our estimate based off of likewise clients, similar to the size of Evansdale. And in the contract, it's basically that $1,000 mark is just a rough guideline. We can go over or under, it's just, it is a guideline. The reason behind that is it's tough for Ryan to go to a technician out in the field and say, well, how much is the service gonna cost? He's not gonna know. And so where do we allocate that invoice to? In the end, it really doesn't matter, because this budget right here, this 10,000, this is the city's budget. The lift station budget that you have is the city's budget. So it's just, how does the city want to pay for it? Does the city want it to come out of this budget, or do they want it to come out of the lift station budget? We can do it anyway. Some cities like to have a huge maintenance budget where they want all the invoices to go to people services. Others want all the invoices to come to City Hall. I guess the only thing I want you to be aware of is at the end, I don't want us to have to send an invoice to the city. I would rather give you guys a check back. But we can do it any way you guys want. It's just a personal preference.
Okay, so how do you wanna do it?
Let us think about that.
Oh my God.
Is that any more clear, or?
We want you guys to pay first for anything under 1,000, right?
Yeah,
Pay for everything completely under 1,000.
Yeah.
Basically run through this budget before we more or less.
Yep.
Okay. And once this is obviously, do you want us to keep on having them bill us and then us submit a check or an invoice to the city? Or do we, after this has been depleted, do you want us to receive the invoices?
If it's under 1,000 and we still have a maintenance budget, we don't wanna receive the invoice,
Okay,
right?
So in other words,
Yeah,
if we,
that is right.
if we complete that budget,
the maintenance, this
I mean, I'm
budget.
sure you're gonna
then
keep
we'll
copies.
then we'll revisit how to handle
Okay, okay.
things. So, does that make sense?
Yep,
And maybe, actually put one together that's gonna
okay.
work with.
And it's completely normal, because like, again, this is just an estimate. Sometimes we don't really know how well we hit it till a year or two later. Sometimes, it takes some time to refine that figure.
Well, the budget is within the monthly fee.
Correct. Yes, yep, that's correct. So it's already, it's the city's budget. We're just maintaining it for you guys.
Well, that's
So
what I
that's
feel
where,
like we.
that's where the answer to maintain everything, so you're maintaining.
Yeah, and yeah, we have.
Thanks, that's the way I look at it.
Any other?
And I apologize, I forgot that we wanted you to make a report at the second meeting. I would put you on the agenda.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
You
fine.
will be next time,
Okay.
as a separate item.
Yeah, if you guys want Ryan to report, or he'll just be present, one or the other. If you want him to come up and present it, that's fine. If you guys just wanna look at it, if you feel that you guys have any questions, he'll be available for that.
All in all, how's everything going?
Things are going well, yes, the plant's looking good. He's been busy cleaning. I think we got 2 more wet wells that need to be done, and I think that will be completed. Just waiting on the lift stations, and whenever employer wants to come down and take a look or have any questions,
I'm sure that'll be happening sooner than later.
okay, let us know.
He said they walked into one of the finest plants they've walked into.
It is a clean old plant, and it is.
Contrary to what some people believed, I guess, but
It is a clean old plant, I'll say that. I've seen a lot of old plants, so,
Very well maintained,
yes,
right?
yes, the plants.
Thank you.
We can work on the lift stations. And we are.
I was glad to see one thing on this report, pumping water, that's to the plant, right?
Yes.
Those numbers are very appropriate versus what I was told or heard in the past. I know we haven't had a wet season, but those are pretty nominal numbers for the plant.
Yeah.
I appreciate this kind of information, gives us a little more knowledge than
Yeah.
not knowing anything. But I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
good,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mark?
Just a question with his report, compared to, say, the spring of 2020, our inflow, what are we pumping now compared to a wet year that shows how bad our underground pipes are? The amount of inflow that we have going in.
That would be mature.
That, or you're asking like where were we last year at a certain time?
Say like the spring of 2020 when it was wet,
Yep.
how much were we pumping then compared to what we're pumping
I'll be able to answer that in a day or two.
when we've had a dry spell like this? And that
Yes.
would show how much, basically, because it's been dry,
Yep,
and compared to when it's wet, that would show how bad
yes.
our lines
And
are.
that's why we go in a year back to give you guys that information to be able to, like he's saying, compare to, well, how dry is this?
I think, Mark, in a wet season, I think it was like 800,000 to 1,000,000 gallons possibly.
June is when we got smoked last
Yeah.
year with that.
So that was what happened last
Okay,
year.
what are we pumping now then?
We are,
Just asking.
I'm thinking about 484.
yeah,
So about half.
480,000 gallons is what they,
So basically,
in May.
you're looking at
And last year, I bet you that was way up here.
over 500,000 gallons of inflow
Correct. Of
of
wastewater.
waste, yeah,
Which is
not wastewater.
90% bath water, shower,
Yeah,
you know. And then,
Okay.
yes, there's some, I infiltration.
Into the infiltration,
Yeah.
okay, just wondered.
But Mark, I don't think we really determined a percentage on I infiltration at this point. We had a lot of conversation about it, but I don't think we really have known what the I flow is causing to the overall gallonage. At least I've never heard anything.
When it's been dry this long, it should really show what our infiltration is compared to when it's dry like this. It's been dry this long that you don't have all the groundwater going into our sewer lines. Right?
Yes, that is typical.
And we're aware of that too, Mark. It's another expense if we're gonna work on I issues too. And we are having some dialogue about doing some of that.
And the Corps has to look into that too, to design the improvement project, because it's gotta be based on past data.
Yeah, because if you're gonna design and redo a plant, you wanna look at what your flow should be, not, you should repair your lines so you're not treating groundwater.
Correct.
Anyone else? So, I have a couple things. Sixth Street Bridge, is gonna need some repairs. Chris was called in on Sunday, I think he said, to make some repairs there because, the decking had rotted and he put some, temporary, lumber over it. So, we're looking into, at this point, probably just replacing it piece by piece. And Chris had a contact in Fairbank, sawmill, that could saw those bridge planks, so 3 by 12, that we could keep on hand fairly inexpensively, replace it as we need to, with the idea that you'd heard, Chris, a potential of a grant.
A DOT grant, we'd have to pay the engineering fees, but the DOT grant would pay for all the materials.
Small cities, bridge repairs. Otherwise, other than the deck, the bridge seems pretty decent. So, John?
Yeah, you're talking about the old bridge going across the creek?
Yeah.
So years ago, when that was all squabbled around with and it was kicked around, the city took care of it. That was told the people up there that from then on, it was their cookie to repair that bridge, period.
I was part of that decision. I don't ever remember that.
Well, I sure do. My memory ain't that good either.
I think you're.
Because we were discussing about how much it cost to fix it that time. Because they had the opportunity to put a street in up there and they didn't want to do that.
What, no, that was in my ward, it's now Christie's ward. So it's your ball game now, Christie. We had looked at trying to get an easement along the highway, coming in off, whatever street that is, Timber Oak. And the neighbors just raised hell. I had never gotten so many calls because they felt like so much traffic was gonna come down that road. Well, there's only 2 houses there. But, so we backed off from that really quick.
And how many homes does that bridge supply? Just 2 homes there?
2.
2 homes?
That's right, and we had looked at trying to buy them out. But we said that would be 400,000, 500,000, even back then. So, the city had an obligation, to repair that bridge, and we got it done fairly economically. I think it was less than 200,000, which is pretty remarkable. So, I think we have a responsibility. If we could let homeowners take over bridges, we could say the same thing.
Well, I think the
To you
reason why
about
they
your
said
street.
that at the time was that would give them more of an incentive to sell out, and city wouldn't have to worry about that bridge.
That might have been a discussion in some circles, but it wasn't here at the table, and it certainly wasn't in my circle, because I had 2 homeowners we needed to serve.
So what do they think it's gonna cost us to fix it this time?
Well,
Well,
we don't know.
we don't know. Another 200,000, we could have bought them out.
Well, no, because the bridge is generally, structurally, very sound. And even back then, the big issue was the garbage truck couldn't roll across it. So they had to bring their garbage cans to this side of the bridge. But more importantly, the ambulance or fire truck couldn't use it. So that was the big issue. And that's not the case now. It's passable. And Chris is gonna check into getting the lumber to make the repairs as we need to. And I think if we get a grant, I don't know, just a ballpark number, I'm guessing less than 75,000? Chris?
We just had to, we'd be responsible for the engineering fees, but that's it.
And it'd be good for, 15, 20 years.
We're still up to $275,000. Back then, you could have bought the houses a lot cheaper, fella.
Yeah, we would have to think differently about
I
it.
bought my house for $5,500 when I bought it.
Well, you're an old guy.
Yes, I am.
That was a long time.
Yes.
Mark,
You definitely don't wanna
Yeah,
buy them now.
yeah,
And I remember the discussion back then, but I don't know, the grant, it's 100% grant, it's not 80-20?
It was 80-20 and then they just went to 100%
Okay,
for smaller cities.
but the thing is, it's still maintenance down the road, even after you get one, it's gonna be maintenance down the road. It's 2 houses, I don't care what the few neighbors think down there, it's for the whole betterment of, you keep saying betterment of the town. Well, the betterment of the town is put a road wide enough that you can get a garbage truck down or a fire truck down, or whatever it needs to be, and go off Timber Oak, get an easement off of Gilbert, going straight through to the back sides of the houses to put one in. This thing, to redo a bridge, there's always maintenance down the road on
every bridge is, every
Yeah.
street is.
every street is, but it's the street
Yeah.
is a heck of a lot cheaper than what you got on the bridges.
So I think at this point in time, we'll just repair the bridge. So the other issue I have is, I sent emails, I think everybody saw that Shannon Jensen is resigned, or effective, the end of June. Well, I got an email today, her assistant is also resigning, effective the end of June. So the library board has their work cut out for them. So that's all I have.
And one thing I just wanted to bring up, I noticed driving around up on the bridge, I mean, we're talking at the bridge, there's a water line that's out of the water. I don't know, 6-inch line along the bank, it's probably 40 feet long, it's exposed. Should that be that way up there?
Up where?
Going across that bridge, right?
It's the water main that
That
serves
serves those,
K-Spear Heights.
yeah, it's out of the
It
water.
comes in from Duran. It's the main, as the water board ever talked about, there's probably 50 foot of the 6-inch main is hanging, part of it's in the creek and part of it's exposed hanging up. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, you drive down there all the time. And
This isn't a water board meeting.
it should be,
No, I wasn't bringing up.
as the water,
Oh, well,
Discussion,
that's a water.
I mean, Dottie's here. Dottie, have you ever seen or heard anything about it?
No, this is the first I've heard about it, but
Well,
I'd be glad to have it
I was
pointed out to
gonna
us.
bring it up at the next meeting. I'm the one that pointed it out to Steve. I was down there looking at the bridge and the whole thing. But I've seen it, it's been that way all winter. I mean, somebody went down there with a sledgehammer, basically they smacked that pipe and Evansdale's out of water.
Did you have something, Donnie?
No, definitely.
Okay. Anybody else?
Is this open discussion now?
Yep.
Oh, Mario Zamora, I'm at 412 South Evans Road. My wife and I have been experiencing a lot of problems with the speeding down Evans Road. I've spoke to Councilman Charles, I've spoke to the chief of police, my wife has called multiple times. It just seems like every time we call the police,
And I'm not trying to tell you guys how to do your job, I'm not here to argue with anybody. It just seems like we just kind of get, put off or like, oh, well, what happens and stuff like that. And I spoke to the chief and, we kind of had a good conversation going. And like I told him, we're not looking for anything drastic to change or anything, we're not looking for a stop sign on every corner or anything like that. I mean, Steve, he lives right across the street from me, he knows what I'm talking about. I've been doing stuff on my end, I put up cameras in the front of my house. I also put a separate camera on my vehicle in case something were to happen. And I mean, we've gotten hit 4 times now, and it just doesn't seem to stop. We also called the city, not the city, but the electrical company, and they're gonna come out and put out a light in front of our house, because we thought maybe that might be the issue too, but I mean, the speeding is still going on. And I know it's not just that, it's also texting and driving, because 3 out of the 4 times that we got hit, they said I was texting. You know what I mean? And so I know it's more than just that. And I guess, like I spoke to Charles and told him, it's not a matter of wanting somebody there 24/7, because a few years ago, when we used to live out in Cedar Falls, we would drive the kids here to Evansdale school because their father lives here. So we're like, hey, we don't want to keep them out of school. But we would come in through River Forest, take them to school and go out the exit on Gilbertville Road. Well, back then there wasn't a stop sign, but there was a huge amount of speeding down that road. And my wife said, when you leave, don't go, they put a speed limit of 25. She said, don't go 26, don't go 27, don't go anything over 25 because the cops are there. And every time I would drive by, the cop would be there. Sometimes they'd have somebody pulled over. I guess what I'm asking for is, what can we do to try and stop some of this from occurring as a longer, solution, instead of just, oh, well, it happens and.
Are you parking out in the street?
Well, right now we don't have a choice. I mean, I have a single driveway, you know what I mean? And our kids are growing up, they're starting to drive. Our son is about to start driving, that's 4 vehicles. You know what I mean? And like I spoke to Steve, and I'm not asking for, again, just a little empathy here, well, what happened. But, I mean, Steve, he has a double, he can fit 2 cars, no problem, but we can't do that.
There's no way to expand your driveway and put some gravel down?
I know. No, not the way our house is placed.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, I appreciate you asking. I mean, that's what I guess I'm trying to do, like I said, I'm trying to do what I can on my end. You know what I mean? What can I guess it's just a relationship just like anything else. I'm trying to give my part. I'm just trying to see what.
I guess I just can't see what the council can do to stop somebody from texting and driving or speeding. I can see how the Evansdale Police Department are going down and checking out, making sure, patrolling that road. And I think we were able to pull a report and we were able to tell that they were there several times. So I think they're doing that, but I don't have full knowledge of that. But, if people are going down that road, and I know there's 25-mile-per-hour signs on, speed limit signs.
They don't got 25.
Yeah, I mean,
No, they don't.
no.
But that's every street.
It's a whole town.
Oh, Mike,
It's a whole town.
So, Mr. Zamora and I did have a conversation, I had an opportunity to talk with his wife as well. I sympathize with what their concerns are, and I don't want them to think that the police department isn't concerned about their concerns, because we are. We're concerned about everybody's concerns. But it's kind of one of those things where the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I only have so many men to work with, and I can't be everywhere all the time. After I spoke with Mr. and Mrs. Zamora, myself and some of my officers spent the next 2 days and several hours out there pulling cars over. Unfortunately, I can assure you that if we go out there right now, I'll find more speeders. So, I don't have a great fix to this. I don't have a great answer to this.
You had mentioned at one time that we did have a sign, the speed limit sign,
We don't. I checked.
or is it?
We used to have a speed, a radar cart,
Right.
so to speak. That's in disrepair, so to some degree. It was old when we bought it.
Can it be fixed, or?
I'd have to look into
Can you
it.
rent those? Can we try it?
Yeah, we can look into it. I know when the previous, 2 previous chiefs were here, they struggled with keeping that thing up and running back then, so.
If it can start, slowing some people down and maybe put an officer, after it or before it or something for.
Yep, I mean, those are certainly things we can look at. I mean, it takes money to maintain those things.
Right.
Actually put a speed camera on it.
Did you say Mid-American is gonna come and put a light on?
Yeah, we're already in the process of,
Are they?
yeah,
That,
absolutely.
I don't know, I mean, that's like the best idea that I
Right.
have seen you come up, I mean, have heard so
No,
far.
absolutely, I mean, and I'm not here to
No.
argue with somebody, but I mean, if you really wanna speak to somebody about this, I mean, speak to Charles, speak to Steve, they're right there, they see it every day. I mean, it, and again, I'm not saying y'all ain't doing your job, that's not what I'm here to do. It's just, it's a little ridiculous, I mean, there ain't no, you know what I mean?
I mean, I agree, your situation is unfortunate, I just don't see it like what more Evansdale can do. I mean, as much as I feel like I wanna do something, and I know Charles would want to do something, and I know.
I've had calls and one big advocate is my neighbor, so, about, the speeders.
But what's putting a
You know.
light on to do for speeders?
Yeah, I don't know, you gotta put a stigma with it, you gotta actually stop the people,
Do those signs work, Mike?
Pardon me?
Do those signs work that flash and tell you you're going 35? Is it a?
Well, I think, I suppose they work with some people. I mean, those aren't designed, we don't issue tickets based on what those things see. It's just telling you, hey, you're speeding, this is your speed. It doesn't take a picture, it doesn't do anything like that. So there's no enforcement relative to that, other than people who drive by can see what their current speed is.
Well, all I know is that I live right across the street from him, and I will confirm what Mike says. They're out there occasionally when people are slow, if they sit on Lima or they sit down on Evans, either on your
No,
north end, and I'm not disputing with you, buddy, but I'm saying,
No.
they're doing what they can do, cause I've been involved every time you got an accident out there. It's just people's behaviors, like I was talking earlier about the trash, I mean, you can school them and tell them this and 25 and that, and when somebody's not around, they're gonna go 50. So I mean, we can just try to do our best, and yes, Mike?
This probably may sound a little contrary to what we're trying to achieve here, but I have heard it suggested. At Elk Run, for example, the speed limit going into Elk Run from Evansdale used to be 25. They had a lot of complaints about the speeding. They'd have people doing 35 and 40. They increased the speed to 30. And now the residents who were complaining feel that it has helped. So they feel that people are obeying the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit.
I guess my major thing too is, I mean, everybody walks down that road, there's a lot of people walking down that road, there's older people, older citizens who ride up and down that road, you know what I mean? And you're right, to me, that seems a little contrary, I mean, I see people walking back and forth all the time, and kids and stuff like that, I guess that's my major concern.
She got sidewalks, buddy.
Well, I mean, we have one sidewalk on our side of the road.
You had none.
I mean, I think you'll see when you get that light up, cause that block is dark, and I know a lot of blocks are dark, but that's dark right there where we're at, and I think if you get a light up there, and people are coming down the road texting or drunk or whatever, they're gonna be more advantageous to see there's a car there if you're out there in the street, instead of hitting it like it's happened several
Headlights aren't
times.
working.
Huh?
They got headlights on their cars and obviously
Well, I know you're back to behaviors again, yeah, I mean, just trying to get
every street in town, I'm sure you talk with residents, their roads are very short.
Mike, how do you allocate, you talk about time, how do you allocate when you have a concern? A couple of days, you think you've done sufficient sitting, controlling, getting the thought out, or is there another type of program or way?
Well, like I said before, it's kind of the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I mean, we hear a complaint in a certain particular area of town for whatever the complaint is, and we try to address it. After I spoke with Mr. and Mrs. Zamora, we spent the next 2 days and several hours out there doing traffic enforcement. And it's not that we're done doing traffic enforcement there, we will continue to do traffic enforcement there, just like we do everywhere else. But if we have a complaint for a certain area, we try to show a little force, a little more force there, if that makes sense.
I mean, when you were there for 2 days, how many stops did you get? Just, I don't.
I
expect it.
personally affected about 10 to 12 stops.
Did you notice a difference?
I can't really tell. I sleep during the day. I'm work third shift. I'd have to ask my wife, you know, but I've noticed that people have slowed down though.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean-
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I have 2, I have 2 weeks of footage on my camera, you know what I mean? I actually do see people
I
out
don't think
there.
anybody's disputing that
Yeah.
they're speeding.
Right.
Yeah.
People that hate you can stop.
Have you been able to,
No, we haven't
get,
signed the
you know, get them to pay for their damages? I mean, have you been
No,
able to
there
catch
was
the people?
there was one that did, they just left their rearview mirror on the side of the road. And that's as far as that got. I ended up having to pay for that,
Yeah, well, sometimes hit and runs are hard to catch, but
you know.
if you're able to, no, your camera should be able to catch that.
No, that was before, that was prior, I did that afterward. I mean, I don't know, I understand my risks, I understand my chances, but that was one of the appeals of us buying that home was, hey, in a few years when we all start driving, you know, we could still park out front, no big deal, but, I mean, I'm not gonna park out there during the winter time, you know, but that was one of the appeals of it, was because we know we were gonna have a bunch of drivers in our house, you know,
Luckily, it's only for a couple of years, right?
right?
Would it help
Hopefully
if,
move out when they're.
say, younger kids parked over in Lima and walked to your house?
Yeah, that's true, I could try that too.
Park on the side street and have them walk over rather than park on the road. Cause it'd be the same thing, you park a car on McCoy Road and left it sit down there at night, they'd be getting hit.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've worked many hit and run accidents. One that comes to mind was on a 1600 block of Gilbert. Car got hit there presumably by a drunk driver and literally destroyed this car. It was totaled. And how that person was able to drive away, I don't know, but we never did catch the person who did it. That's unfortunately, and I know you don't want to hear this, Mr. Zamora, but
No,
it is inherently the risk you take by parking on city streets.
Well, we spoke to Mike about this yesterday, about Evans, and it sounds like it's a no-win situation. Now, if the council wants to go to speed cameras, that would be one way to do it, but boy, that's opening a whole nother can of worms.
I don't think we need to go to that route. The biggest thing is, you know, when I first started coming over to Evansdale and visiting Evansdale, because I didn't live here at that time, you know, it was known that you didn't speed in Evansdale.
Right.
I mean, you know, it was,
Same
you
here.
didn't make a wrong turn. It was too much, really, you know? And I know that we're trying to hit a happy medium. I think maybe we've gone a little bit the other way, because you don't hear that anymore. You know, what you hear is, you know,
Well, it's a matter of perspective, because I've never heard that.
Yeah.
That, you
Oh
know,
my gosh,
that
I've
there were
seen
speed
that.
traps.
From growing up, you never
drink in Evansdale unless you were from Evansdale.
pretty much, yeah.
I've never heard of speed traps, but I have heard don't speed in Evansdale.
You know, and I think that that's because, you know, it was a pretty, you know, aggressive approach at traffic for periods of time, you know, that kind of put that stigma in everybody's head. And, you know, I don't know if that's an option.
Well, I guess my only answer to that would be, I've been here 22 years and I have not seen any drastic change in the way we do work at
Right.
the Evansdale Police Department, so.
So, phones don't help.
No, I agree,
So-
no question.
All right, anything else? I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll mention that.
Second.
Thank you.
A motion and a second, we're adjourned.
You look at